Okay, so Bismillah Rahman Rahim. We are going to discuss today another topic that is improvement of microbial strains. So, industrial industrial biotechnology people or the industries that are dealing with the products, they are continuously making various tactics in order to improve the end products, in order to improve the biological products that they are going to sell. So, what first of all we are going to discuss what are these tactics. So, industries often they often want to make their packaging attractive. So, this is the first point. So, they try to only sell their products by making the attractive packaging while keeping the other technological or other technical aspects of the formation of the products the same. Then another aspect that another factor that they consider is the efficient utilization of human resources. So they try to utilize the available human resources very efficiently so that the price of the ultimate product would be reduced and this product would become more competitive in the market in order to reach the end consumers. And another factor that they consider while performing the industrial products is actually the efficient downstream processing. So if they could make the downstream processing very efficient, if they could make the procedure of purification, procedure of extraction of various industrial products very efficient, then this means that they are going to reduce a huge amount of price of various industrial products, and this means that their product would become more competitive in the market. So they consider the downstream processing in order to make the industrial processes competitive and in order to reduce the price of the industrial products that they are going to manufacture. Then another factor to consider by the industrialists is more productive medium in the fermenter. So this is a very important factor that as productive the medium is, this means that more competitive the end product would be and more price efficient the end product would be. So they always try to use the medium that the they always try to use the medium that would be more productive in terms of yield. Then another factor of industrial biotechnology consideration is better control of environmental conditions in the fermenter. So you all know about the environmental conditions that they affect very much in terms of the production of various industrial bioproducts. So they try to control the environmental conditions in the fermenter so that the yield of the ultimate products would be increased and the price of the ultimate product would be reduced so that it becomes more competitive in the market. So environmental condition, control of the environmental conditions is a very important factor in order to increase the yield and in order to decrease the cost of the end product of industries. Another factor to be considered while producing the industrial products on large scale is better engineering control of the fermenter. So I think you have already completed an assignment about the fermenters, their design, their types. So you are well aware of the design of the fermenters, right? So design of the fermenter, its engineering design, that how efficiently it is controlling the industrial process would be directly influencing the price as well as the yield of the industrial products. So this means that the fermenter should be efficiently designed and there should be efficient control of the engineering processes while we are carrying out the large scale fermentations in the fermenters. So this would directly this would directly affect the quality, quantity, and price of the final products of the industries. Then the last factor the last consideration, which is the most important consideration while producing various industrial products in the fermenters, is the improvement of the microbial strains. So industrialists or the industries are continuously trying to improve the microbial strains that they are using in the fermentation processes. So this means that as efficient we can improve the microbial strains, the greater would be the chances of the yield of the ultimate products in industries, and greater would be the chances of less price or efficient price of the final product, and more would be the chances of competitiveness of the final product in the market. So in the rest of the lecture, we are going to discuss on the improvement of the microbial strain, which is our today's topic. And this is the most fundamental and most important factor while we are carrying out the large scale industrial processes, while we are producing the industrial products on large scales. So in order to improve the industrial strains, in order to improve the microbial strains in large scale fermentations, there are some problems that are associated. So first of all, we are going to discuss the problems that are associated with the improvement of the microbial strains in large scale fermentations. So the first problem is greater aeration. This means whenever we are going to improve any wild type strain, whenever we are going to improve any industrial strain, then the improved strain would face the aeration problem. This means we have to give greater amount of aeration to the improved strains. This is one problem. Another problem to consider while improving the microbial strains is more intensive foam control. So this is a possibility that whenever we are going to improve the microbial strains in industrial processes, what might happen that there might be greater foam production in industrial products. So this means on one hand we are improving the microbial strains, and on the other hand we might face this problem of foaming. So we have to give more care, we have to be more intensive in order to control the foaming in the industrial processes. Then the third challenge or the third problem that might arise while improving the industrial strains is the new challenges of the downstream processing. So this implies that whenever we are going to use the improved strains in industrial processes, what might happen that the downstream processing might face some challenges. So we should we should overcome those challenges that might come while using the improved industrial strains. Then another problem is the increase in the cost of the media. So there is there is a possibility that new strain or the improved strain, improved microbial strain would demand more amount of nutrients as compared to its wild type strain. So if it is demanding more nutrients to be utilized for industrial production of the products, then what would ultimately might happen that you need to give more amount of media, you need to give more quantity of media to the fermenters. This means that this would ultimately increase the cost of the final product. So these are some of the problems that might arise when using the improved industrial strains as compared to their wild types. Then, so in strain improvement cases, we have to consider certain factors. We can carry out various considerations. We can execute various procedures in order to improve microbial strains. So let's one by one discuss these considerations that should be taken care of when we are improving the industrial strains. So the first factor or the first consideration is the regulation of the enzyme activity. So this means the enzyme activity is directly proportional to the ultimate yield. So sometimes we are directly going to produce the enzymes in the large scale fermentations, right? So if we are going to produce the enzymes or we are going to produce the other metabolites that as final products, we what we need to do is we need to ultimately regulate the enzyme activity of the microorganisms, and this would ultimately directly affect the final product on large scales. Another consideration is the cell wall permeability. So this means that as permeable as the cell wall is, more would be the chances to release the metabolites that we need in industrial products. So we should consider the cell wall permeability. This implies that we should consider all those treatments to the microbial strains in order to improve those microbial strains that involve the cell wall permeability. We can treat these cells with enzymes. We can treat these cells with certain chemicals that are responsible to increase the cell wall permeability. Another consideration in order to improve the strain is the selection of the high yielding strain directly from the environment. So this is another factor that can be considered for strain improvement. So you know that there are so many strains in a particular species of the microorganisms. So we could directly select high yielding microbial strain from the environment rather than improving the strain by changing its genetic apparatus. We can directly select a natural variant of any microbial species that would be naturally more high yielding as compared to the other variants of that particular species. Then the last two considerations would be directly linked to our today's lecture, and we are going to discuss about these two considerations of the strain improvement. And this consideration is the manipulation of the existing genetic apparatus of the microbial strains. So there are two possibilities. One possibility is there that you can manipulate the existing genetic apparatus of the microorganisms. You can mutate the existing genetic apparatus of the microorganisms in order to get more improved traits out of those microorganisms, right? And the second possibility is the introduction of the new genetic features. So this is the recombinant DNA technology. This is the routinely used practice that we can introduce new genes, we can introduce new fragments of DNA into the wild type strains, and we can make those microbial strains genetically uh, uh, the GMOs, genetically modified organisms, in order to get the more improved industrial traits out of those microorganisms. So this means these two possibilities are directly linked to the change of the genetic apparatus of the microorganisms. So one strategy to change the genetic apparatus of the microorganisms is to use the existing genetic apparatus and to cause any change that is required in order to improve the strain in the existing genetic apparatus of the microorganism. And the second strategy is to introduce new genes, is to select those new genetic fragments that we know that once they are introduced to the microorganisms, they would cause the improvement in the strain. They would ultimately cause the increase in the yield of the industrial products in the microbial strains. So in the next lectures, we are going to discuss these two strategies, either to manipulate the existing genetic apparatus of the microorganisms or to introduce the new genetic features in the microorganisms. So today we are focused on this first point, manipulation of the existing genetic apparatus of the microorganisms, in the next slides. So manipulation of the existing genetic apparatus. So we can manipulate the existing genetic apparatus of the microorganisms by producing the mutations in the microorganisms, right? So we can produce the mutation in the existing genetic apparatus of the microorganisms in order to improve any trait of the microorganism. So once we produce the mutations in microorganisms, this means that there are now chances, although there are chances of the failure as well, but there are chances that the certain variant or the certain mutant, particular mutant would be able to produce more amount of or the more yield of the required industrial product as compared to the other mutants. So we would be then more interested to select only that mutant that would be more yielding ultimately. So the mutation is defined as, a conventional mutation is defined as any change in the nucleotide basis the uh, of the microorganism. So you are well aware of the fundamental concept that DNA is comprised of 4 nucleotide bases, right? Adenine, guanine, cytosine, thymine. So the arrangement of these nucleotide bases, arrangement of these nucleotides determines the sequence of the DNA. And the arrangement of these nucleotides also determines the distribution of many genes in the genome of the microorganisms. So presence of these genes ultimately determine to express various traits in the microorganisms, right? So these are the fundamental concepts. So this means if there is any change in the nucleotide bases, this might ultimately affect the traits that are going to be expressed by these microorganisms. So these changes in the nucleotide bases are called as the mutations. And on a broader aspect, on a broader category, although there are many types of the mutations that you might have already learned, but on a broader aspect, there are 2 types of the mutations. The first one are called as the spontaneous mutations, right? So spontaneous mutations are those mutations that are actually happening round the clock. So they can automatically be caused during the replication process of the microorganisms, although the rate of these mutations is low. And the second types of mutations are the induced type of the mutations. So induced mutations, are those mutations that we deliberately induced in the genome of the microorganisms. So we can induce these mutations by using various techniques, by using various methods that we are going to discuss in the next slides. So these are 2 types of mutation. Either they can occur spontaneously, or they could be induced in the genome of the microorganism, so that the traits that these microorganisms are going to express, they could be changed. Now, so we would be more focused towards the induced mutations, because by inducing the mutations, we can alter the traits, we can alter the products that the microorganisms are going to produce on industrial scales. So we would be more focused towards the induced mutations. How we can induce these mutations in the genome of the microorganisms? The first strategy that we could apply in order to induce the mutations in the genome of the microorganism is inducing the mutations by the physical mutagens, right? Mutagen is any agent that could cause the mutation in the genome of the organism is called as mutagen. So we can use physical mutagens in order to induce the mutations in the genome. And the second type of mutagens are called as the chemical mutagens. So first of all, we are going to discuss the physical mutagens that could be used, that could be utilized in order to induce the mutations in the microorganisms. So in case of the physical mutations, what could ultimately, what physical agents we could use to cause mutations is, number one, ultraviolet light. So we can use UV light in order to cause the mutations in microorganisms. So UV light is the widely used physical agent, and that is widely used in most of the laboratories in order to cause the mutation in the genome of the organisms. So how we can use ultraviolet light to cause mutation? We can use a range of 200 to 300 nanometer of the ultraviolet region to be incident in order to incident these UV light to the suspensions of the cells or spores in petri dishes. We can directly expose these suspensions of the cells or spores to the ultraviolet light of this range in order to cause the mutations in microorganisms. And another factor that need to consider in this method is that the suspension should be continuously stirred in order to expose all microorganisms to the UV light, so that all our microorganisms could be exposed, and there would be more chances to cause the mutations in microorganisms. And another factor to consider whenever we are developing the mutations by using the ultraviolet radiations is the killing percentage of the spores of the microorganisms, right? So as many microorganisms, as many microorganisms, as more the microorganisms would be killed by the exposure of the UV light, more would be the chances of the mutations in the microorganisms. So this is a direct relationship between the killing percentage. So I mean, whenever the microorganisms are exposed to the UV light for causing the mutations, so there there always there is a consideration that around 60 to 99% microorganisms that are exposed to the UV light should be killed by the exposure of the UV light. So this, for a successful experiment, uh, there are uh, there should be a consideration of a killing percentage of 60 to 99.9% microorganisms should be killed. So that the remaining microorganisms that are survived by the exposure of the UV light, there would be a great chances of having a very good number of mutations in the genome of those survived microorganisms. Now, we have to understand how ultraviolet light cause mutations in the genome of the microorganisms. We have to understand the mechanism of this mutation. So what happens that the ultraviolet light actually cause the formation of the dimers in the genome of the microorganism. So ultraviolet light, whenever the microorganisms are exposed to the UV light, what happens that the pyrimidines, thiamine or cytosine, the pyrimidines could form the dimers. The what could happen that the hydrogen bonds that are present between the purines and pyrimidines, they could ultimately disappear, and there would be there are chances that there are chances of the formation of the covalent bonds between the thiamine or cytosine. So whenever these covalent bonds are formed between thiamines and cytosine, this means that the newly growing strand of the DNA would actually be terminated in a premature fashion. So there would be no replication at all. There would be a chain termination in this process. So this means that this would ultimately cause the mutation in the DNA. So the this is the mechanism of causing mutation in the genome of the microorganism by the exposure to the UV light. Then the second type of physical agent that is used to cause the mutation, that is used to induce the mutations in the genome of the microorganisms, are the ionizing radiations. So ionizing radiations are, for example, X-rays, gamma rays, alpha particles, fast neutrons. All of these are actually the ionizing radiations. They cause ionization of the DNA actually. So this is why they are called as the ionizing radiations. So whenever a DNA, whenever the genome of the microorganisms is exposed to the ionizing radiations, what would ultimately happen that there are great chances of the mutations in the genome of the microorganisms, right? So let me start it again. Okay. So what is the mechanism of causing the mutation by exposure to the ionizing radiations? So the mechanism is whenever the genome, whenever the DNA is exposed to the ionizing radiations, what happens that these ionizing radiations knock out the outer electrons in the DNA. So whenever once the outer electrons in the DNA are knocked out, what happens that there would be the ionization in the DNA, and ultimately there is a change in the there is a change in the DNA. There is a mutation in the DNA due to the formation of the radicals. So this is the mechanism of the uh, mutation development in the DNA by the exposure to the ionizing ionizing radiations. Then the second category of mutagens are the chemical mutagens. So till now we have discussed about the physical mutagens. So now we are going to discuss about the chemical mutagens. So there are a variety of chemical mutagens that exist that can be used in order to cause the mutations, in order to develop the mutations in the DNA that is exposed to these chemical mutagens. So chemical mutagens are those actually chemicals, are those chemicals that that are used to create the mutations in the genome of the microorganisms. So there are variety of examples that exist as chemicals to cause mutations in the DNA. So we can use three categories in case of chemical mutagens. The first one is those chemicals that act on the resting or non-dividing organisms. So this means these are those chemicals that actually cause the mutations, but they could cause the mutation without entering into the replication of the microorganisms. They could be used whenever there is no division, there is no cell division in the microorganisms. So whenever there is no replication happening in the microorganisms, this means we can use these chemical agents to cause mutations. Examples include nitrous acid, nitrosoguanidine, nitrogen mustard. So these are three examples that are those chemicals that could be used in order to cause mutations in non-dividing microorganisms. So we have to know what is the fundamental mechanism. Mechanism is whenever we use these chemicals, whenever we use certain concentrations of these chemicals, what these chemicals do that they would ultimately replace the purines and pyrimidines in the arrangement of the four bases in the DNA. So they can cause the replacement in the nucleotide sequence of the DNA by changing the purines and pyrimidines. The second category of the chemical mutagens is DNA analogs. And these DNA analogs are actually incorporated during the replication. So this means whenever new strands of the DNA are being formulated in the microorganisms, in the genome of the microorganisms, we can utilize DNA analogs in order to cause the mutations in the microorganisms. So how they function, they would ultimately function whenever there is a replication. What they do, they could, how they function, how they could act. The examples include 2-aminopurine. So 2-aminopurine is actually an analog of the adenine in the DNA. So whenever we use this 2-aminopurine during the replication process, what happens that in the formation of the new strands during replication process, these 2-aminopurines would be incorporated in place of the adenines. So whenever, because they resemble the chemical structure of the adenines. So this means that ultimately what happens that in a new strand, whenever the chain would reach to these 2-aminopurines, this would be terminated. There would be no synthesis of the new strand then, because this is not actually the nucleotide base. This is actually the analog of the nucleotide base, right? And in a similar fashion, we can use 5-bromouracil. 5-bromouracil in its chemical structure resembles the thiamine. So what happens that whenever there is new strand, whenever there is a synthesis of the new strands of DNA, so these 5 bromo uracils would be incorporated in the new strand in place of the thiamines. So this means these were the analogs of the thiamine. So um, on the second cycle, what happens that the chain would be terminated upon reaching 5 bromo uracil. And in this way, we can cause mutations in the DNA by using these DNA analogs. And in a similar fashion, we can also use those chemical mutagens that actually cause the frame shift mutations. So I hope that you are well aware of the concept of the frame shift mutations. Frame shift mutations are those mutations in which actually the complete reading frame is changed by the incorporation by the incorporation of the new by the incorporation of new nucleotide base, right? So the complete frame is changed, and ultimately the the function of the protein would also be changed. The function of the resulting protein would be changed due to the formation of the new strand, new I mean new reading frame. So what happens that we can use acridine as frame shift mutagen. So what acridine do is, this acridine would, whenever it enters to the DNA, it would actually get the two adjacent bases in the DNA far apart, right? So whenever two bases would be more away from each other in the DNA, what would happen that there are chances that the uh, new base, new nucleotide base would be entered into the frame, and there would be a complete change in the frame shift. There would be a complete change in the frame, in the reading frame, and ultimately there would be a resulting change in the function of the resulting protein. So these are then called as the frame shift mutagens. I hope you understand all these mechanisms of the chemical mutagens. So I thank you all uh, for a patient listening. This is all about today's lecture. Now, if you have questions about today's lecture, you